Hi everyone, and welcome to Southbridge Community Television. I'm your host, Max Gullekson, and we're here in Southbridge, Honest Town, for another show today. And today we have two guests. We have Ken Comia, who is the town planner. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Max.
And we have Daphne Politis, who is also a town planner and is a principal at Community Circle and Barrett Planning Group. Hi, Daphne.
Hi there.
Now, the reason we're here today with these two fine people is because recently, over the past year, the town has been undergoing a zoning bylaw rewrite. And this is a long process, and it takes a little time. There's a whole lot of collaboration going on. There's a lot of outreach to the community, and it requires normally an expert such as Daphne to come in and guide the town through this long process. And we're going to talk to these folks today a little bit about that. We're going to start with Ken. Ken, you're the town planner for the town of Southbridge.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for a little while.
Yeah, so I've been here for almost about I've been here for a year now.
I see. We've seen you around. It's good to see you.
Oh, yes.
Ken, why does the town need planning?
Well, I mean, before I came on board, the town, they had the economic development department, and the planning aspect was led by the planning board, and they didn't have a full-time staff.
It's a group
person.
of volunteers.
Correct.
Part-time, non-paid.
Right.
Yeah.
So in my position as the town planner, I do help support the planning board and the Zoning Board of Appeals when necessary, and we work through applications that are addressed through that are addressed in the zoning bylaw. And, I often work with the development community as well as the residents of the town through any sort of application or public processes that need to take place.
Is it fair to say that you're here to facilitate business coming in? A big part of your job is to encourage economic growth within our town.
Right, and that's why I'm housed with the Economic Development and Planning Office. I work closely with Rosemary Scrivens and Rose Canoyer down in our office, and down there we are the economic development arm of the town, and planning is an important
because the town thinks it's important.
Correct.
To try to bring in business.
Yes.
It increases the tax base. It helps the homeowners here. It takes the burden of taxation off of homeowners and residents and so forth. Plus, it makes for a vibrant town. You have employment opportunities and such.
Exactly.
Ken, let me ask you. Now, the zoning bylaw update, this has been going on for a year now. Why? I mean, the zoning bylaws, it seems like a book of codes. What is it really, and why the opportunity to clean it up, if you will?
Well, I think if we took a look at our current bylaw, our current bylaw was adopted in 1985.
It's been a while. Huh?
So it's been a while, and it has been amended since then, most recently with the adoption by the town council of our medical marijuana and registered marijuana dispensaries.
That was
bylaw.
a change to the zoning bylaw.
Correct.
Okay.
And so incorporating all of those changes since 1985, the town is going through this process that will address those changes, put them into one document, as well as make the document easier to follow, something that is important for developers and residents as they navigate through, what types of regulations, and it needs an update.
What's a zone? I mean, we got light industry.
I'd like to add one more thing to that, which is that the town had also undertaken 3 very important and large-scale planning efforts. One was the downtown revitalization. The other was the master plan that actually I was involved leading that effort, and then the Southbridge Economic Development Plan. So each of those 3 plans had recommendations that were widely vetted and there was consensus around, but in some cases the zoning did not encourage or support their implementation, and in other cases the zoning may have actually been an obstacle to their implementation. And in the state of Massachusetts, it is not required yet, there's pending legislation about this, that once you have undertaken these major planning endeavors and adopted them, that you must make your zoning align with them. There are other states called consistency states in which that is the case. So it's
So
up
one
to
of the
each
requirements
municipality.
for this revitalization plan is that your plans fit your zoning bylaws.
Well, that the zoning bylaw actually needs to be adjusted in order to help implement, because it is one of the major tools that a town has to determine land use, what kinds of land, and this is a good segue to you answering the question of what is a zone. So what is allowed in which zone, what it looks like, how large it is, and so what is a zone, Ken?
Yeah, so to jump off that, a zone is normally something that has been, it's particular to a parcel, sometimes a group of parcels that make up a boundary of where certain things can be located. There are usually standards in place for that, dimensional requirements, how large a lot has to be in order for you to develop, how large you can put or how large of a structure you can put on there, and the types of uses that are allowed.
You don't want a factory next to your house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you want compatible uses.
Yeah, you want houses all together. Daphne Politis, AICP. What does AICP stand for?
So AICP is the certification. It's the American Institute of Certified Planners. So we planners have to go through a certification process, and then we must keep that certification by doing continuing education every year.
For a living, you do this. You go to communities, and this isn't your first rodeo here in Southbridge. You go to communities and you help them basically with their zoning.
So I do a variety of planning-oriented activities, including master planning, downtown revitalization planning, and Judy Barrett, who is Barrett Planning Group.
Right.
She is the zoning expert in the state.
I see. The both of you are working on our zoning bylaws.
Yes, the two of us work together on this. And part of my contribution was also the continuity with the master plan and the economic development plan.
So for the town of Southbridge, you're helping with the zoning bylaws. And you started last October.
Correct.
What have you been up to?
So let me just take a look at my notes for a moment. So we had a process, which is the usual process that we undertake. First of all, we meet with stakeholders. Now, stakeholders in a zoning process mean people who use the zoning ordinance on a frequent and regular basis, but also people who don't necessarily, but just experience the results of the ordinance, meaning there's a new development on Main Street, and how did that turn out? How do people feel about the use, the look, the setback, and then talk about what they would like.
You get some input from people that care.
Yes, people who cared and people who are in the know as well.
How do you do that? Do you set up seminars or conferences
so
or
we
meetings?
had 27 interviews.
27 different interviews. Wow.
They were clustered, so they were in groups. And then we also met with a working group, and on the working group there are particular expertise.
These were volunteer people that came on a regular basis?
They weren't all volunteers. Some of them were town staff, and they came on a regular basis. We met 9 times. Simultaneous to this, Judy Barrett does what we call the zoning diagnostic. So she looks at your existing ordinance and looks at it for clarity, ease of use, consistency. And what I mean by that is a lot of times, and it's not just a Southbridge problem, as Ken mentioned, over time, amendments are made, additions are made, and so there are sometimes you can find contradictions in the code.
After 30 years, it can become a bit of a mess, almost.
Or even contradictions. And then state law changes, so is it up to state law?
So the landscape is changing.
Yes.
But the bylaws can get stagnant.
Yes.
So over 40 years later, you've got what we have now, or 32 years later, that needs cleaning up.
So, for example, that's a very good point that it can be stagnant. For example, a very specific, small example is that the uses over time become different. There are different, just like food trucks. They didn't used to be a thing. Now they are.
Now
so
society has changed.
Right.
We have a new thing.
Yeah, and that's not addressed in the zoning ordinance.
But it wasn't there 30 years ago.
Now, for less kind of frivolous example, if you will, one of the big issues in all of the planning efforts is the fact that the population is aging, and there's going to be a huge increase in the senior population. That's just not in Southbridge, but it's regional, but in Southbridge specifically. So what is needed for seniors, and one of the big issues is housing. Now, that was not addressed in the zoning ordinance.
Do you think the new ones will encourage that?
Yes.
You do?
Oh, yes.
Now, I saw you when you first came here. I saw you speak. And one of the key words, one of the things you were talking about was increasing economic activity. So are you shooting to do that too? Maybe loosen it up for developers or people that want to bring business in here? And do you find our current bylaws a little restrictive?
So there are several points to be made with regard to that, and it's a very important point, and I'm glad you brought it up. So first of all, if a bylaw is kind of a older version and it's fragmented, pieced together, someone from the outside looking to make an investment, they're going to be a little put off by that.
Like discouraged?
Discouraged.
It's already hard enough.
It's hard
already
enough.
Spending enough money, and now
I'm taking a risk, and now I'm not sure. Is this,
Yeah.
In addition to that, the existing bylaw has so many things that have to be done by special permit, whereas we know, based on all of the input that we've had, that there are certain things that most people agree they want. So why wouldn't you have that by right?
Right.
So if it's by right...
So special permit means you have to ask special permission.
And you might not get it.
Yeah.
And you've put in, now you've taken the risk, you've put in money, so that's very discouraging.
Right, and you have that waiting that you might get a no.
Exactly.
I got you. So you've met with all these people, you've got to a point, you've kind of fiddled it down, you're nearing the end of your process now.
Yes.
So we're going to get to the end probably this month. Probably this month, after 13 months of effort.
Probably November.
All these people putting in their effort. Where do we go from here?
So before we do that, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the changes
that we've made?
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the big ones I'd like to know.
Just the big
Especially
ones.
as how they relate to improving the business climate.
Okay. So just as we've said, having a bylaw that's easier to use, that's made more predictable, that encourages investment.
So right away they read it and they know this might be a town they want to come to.
Yes, and the town sends a message that, we have clear definitions, we have uses that are now up to date.
Yeah.
You don't need
these
special
businesses
permit.
read between the lines and they know a town based on the bylaws?
Oh, we know that by talking to developers.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, we know that.
Yeah, and your experience of all these towns you visited and so forth, you already know that they'll read the bylaws. And
oh, they do that before even approaching you.
Yeah.
That's what they do because it's online.
There might be people out there that were interested, but you don't even know because they took one look at our existing bylaws.
So I spoke with one. I spoke with a developer in New York who was doing some work in Brooklyn and using older mill buildings and older factory buildings.
Sort of like we have here.
Correct. So I said, I think you just should take a look at Southbridge. And I told him all about Southbridge and I gave him contact information. And then he wrote me back that he looked.
He looked at our zoning bylaw.
And what he was interested in was doing mixed use with housing and other stuff, and like retail and other stuff on there, and that was not.
It's not here, not now.
It will be soon.
It will be soon. It will be soon.
So like you said, it's kind of the new bylaw will be reflecting best practice, and that's it.
Yeah.
And Ken here has worked in other towns, even in other states, and he's also very aware of what best practice is, and so that's really important to know that you can communicate with people who, especially people outside of Southbridge wanting to make an investment because they've seen what it's like elsewhere.
As town planners, it's going to make your job easier, Ken, as a town planner.
I think so.
Yeah.
And, to Daphne's point, developers particularly, they do their research before coming to the town. And I think
they have a lot at stake.
Yeah, and there's cost and there's time.
Yeah.
And I think that the new bylaw will allow for easier access to understanding those, what the town wants and how it should look. But I do think that there will be less, there will not be as many questions about why, this type of...
Like why things are, though.
Exactly.
The town of Southbridge, in your opinion, it could use a little development.
Well, I think based on the many plans that, the town has gone through, development is something that I think is invited, is welcomed, and I think both the town staff and many residents probably would want, you know, certain types of development coming in, and I do think that, you know, this is a town that is ripe for that, and I hope hopefully the zoning bylaw update and, you know, the adoption of this new bylaw will lead to...
Maybe open the door a little.
Exactly.
So the number...
mixed use is something you want.
The number one issue that people asked for and wished for in the master planning process and the economic development process was a revitalized downtown. They wanted more retail. They wanted it to be more of a destination, more of a place.
Yeah.
And some of it was for job creation, as you mentioned. Some of it was to increase the tax base, but also there was this kind of yearning for a community gathering space, a community living room.
Like maybe it was in the past.
Correct.
Like you would go downtown because that was part of your human...
It was your...
that you need people and that you wanted to do it right here in your own town.
It was your town.
Southbridge, it used to be. We had department stores downtown.
Right.
And I think that's probably quite prevalent throughout the state, that people have moved out. You know, it's more of a suburb, but we're trying to bring that back, right? And these zoning bylaws can encourage that.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially they're going to open up the rules around downtown development a little bit.
Streamline the processing.
Yeah, make it easier to get into business. These are good things. I think a developer would like it. I can't imagine, and I live in town, I lived here for a while, and I agree with you. If there was things downtown, I'd go to them. I think most people would. I mean, I've got to get in the car and drive to Auburn to, so I mean, I could walk downtown.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some of the changes, some of the important areas. What else?
Encouraging housing for the senior population.
Okay. Yeah, and you just said that we're the graying of the demographic.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And then also the gateways. One of the big issues, especially in the master plan and the economic development plan, were people's concern regarding the reputation of Southbridge, feeling as though other towns look down on Southbridge.
How can zoning fix that?
So, the image that one gets of a town at its gateways when it entering the town does project the first impression.
Yeah.
So the zoning does address making those gateways more aesthetically pleasing.
I see. Well, I mean, I love big money.
Yeah.
I drive into Southbridge with big money. I feel at home.
And it's
So there's one thing we have going for us already.
That's right.
Okay,
oh, yes.
But other ways we can make it more eye appeal, more the first impression, especially new people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see. And those are good things. That's not a huge thing either, really. I mean, that's something.
That's right. That's not
big
that's so
dollar
hard to do.
the,
That's right.
All right. What else we got that we wanted? Some big area that we want to change a little bit.
So the central core that we talked about.
The elderly housing.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
So this new update is actually expanding the central core. So currently in our zoning map, the central core exists as an overlay district, which means that the underlying district for which most of the current central core is a general business zone. Yeah. But now with this new central core district, now you can have a multitude of different uses in the central core.
By right.
By right. So, you know.
But you don't have to get a special permit.
Exactly.
Special permit.
Exactly. And so that's probably the biggest thing in regards to Daphne's point about the central core and how important it is to the town.
And we're going to make it easier. So for a guy like me, I mean, I'm not a... You guys are AICPs, and you're just absolute experts in all this. If I'm going to sum it up, you're going to make it a little easier to bring a business downtown. Is that fair to say? Yeah. By making it less regulatory, by making the process easier to understand. And this will all be written right into the new zoning bylaw.
Yes.
Correct.
So really, there you do have business development written into the code of bylaws of the town of Southbridge. I see. So that's
that
how
was a
you
major
can write the
goal,
rules.
as you had stated.
Yeah, that was one of your biggies.
Yeah.
And that was probably identified even before you got here. That must be a goal for a lot of towns, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, let's try to bring people back.
Yes.
Like Amherst, if you don't mind me throwing it.
Yeah,
I mean, who doesn't like going downtown to Amherst and getting a slice of pizza?
Exactly.
Why can't we? Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, we do have many fine pizza stores. So. All right, well, that sounds great. Now, we're almost done. You've done due diligence. You've met 27 times. You've had focus groups. You've had public hearings. Now you're going to produce a product.
So now that we've had what we call the first reading draft that's been reviewed, the second reading draft.
And that allows people to hear it?
To review it.
Okay.
And now we have tomorrow night the planning board public hearing in the town council chambers. On October 15th, the town council meeting will be the first reading for the town council.
Of the new zoning bylaw?
Of the new zoning.
Incomplete, you're that close. Wow, okay.
October 29, the town council meeting, second reading draft. To continue second reading. And then tentatively, we have set for November 19th, 7 p.m. town council meeting, third reading, and vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
Because they must approve it in order for it to be...
3 readings is a crazy requirement. I believe it's in the Mass General Law that you have to read it 3 times at a town council meeting, and that's why you're doing that, because this is the law.
So, yes.
And on that third one, when they vote, at that point, at the approval of the minutes, then it becomes the law?
It becomes it.
So it's right around the corner.
It's right around the corner. Now, if anybody doesn't understand something or wants to make a comment, even if they can't make it tomorrow night to the public hearing, which is a little short notice if you haven't been following, Ken, what should they do?
They can contact our office downstairs here in Town Hall, or come down to our Economic Development and Planning office. You can reach myself or Rosemary Scrivens.
The Economic Development Director.
Correct. You can call the office at 764-5402. Or you can email me at my name, Comia, K-C-O-M-I-A, at southbridgemass.org. And Rosemary at rscrivens, R-S-C-R-I-V-E-N-S, at southbridgemass.org.
So I'm hearing you say that not only did you had 27 opportunities basically, but even now, any input from people, because that's so important.
Very important.
I mean, you don't want to get to the end of this whole process and have somebody say, oh, but wait a minute. Don't want that.
No.
So I know you've done good outreach. I mean, you've done your due diligence as far as involving the community that you're impacting here. But right till the end, you're going to have that opportunity. And so basically, we're looking at the advent very soon of a new set of zoning bylaws, and according to Daphne, it's going to be a little more business friendly. It's going to be like easier, maybe a little, because I'm not the brightest bulb. Maybe a little less legalese, kind of.
Yes.
Right.
Very much
for the
so.
like lay person
Very
can
much
read this,
so. And the chart, the table of uses is crisper and clearer.
A little easier to figure out.
Easier to use.
Because I mean, I've looked before, and I'm back and forth.
And that's part of the issue, right?
You get discouraged,
everyone should be able to.
Yeah.
And then the other, I mean, there are other components that we didn't talk about, which is kind of cleaning it up, and also, so there are some parts in town where there's a lot, a parcel, and it's half in one zone, let's say residential, and the other half in a business zone.
Oh, that's
so
weird.
That's a little weird. So those are cleaned up.
Oh, okay.
And there are other kinds of, say, cleanups.
These cleanups are required because over the period of time, laws have changed, amendments have been put in, and the climate, like you said, has changed. New businesses coming in and things like that.
Exactly.
That's how you'll get a lot with half business and half residential. Like that.
And we changed the names of some of the residential zones to make it easier.
So, yeah, I mean, currently in our bylaw, we have a single-family residential zone, we have a two-family, and a multifamily. Our new bylaw is going to say R1, R2, R3. Residential 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And it's specific to those types of products in those zones.
And that's kind of usual, you know.
Yeah, it is.
In other communities.
Yeah, I see. Do you like the way the process has gone?
Oh, yes. And one thing that both Judy and I have commented on, we've told you, but we've also told each other a lot, is the people on the working group and the town staff have been so dedicated to making this right. And even when they personally may have felt a disagreement about something, it was so impressive to us how all of the people in the working group would think, but what's the best for the town? And that's not always the case.
You found them collegial?
Oh, very collegial. Oh, very.
Were they nice to you?
Very nice.
Were they nice to Judy too?
Yes, they were.
All right, I'm glad to hear that because we have nice people in here. I'd hate to hear different.
No,
it's an honest town.
It's been a really good process.
Good experience for you?
Yes.
Not your first one either.
That's right.
Well, you know, thanks for coming to town and
Well,
helping
thanks
us
for
with
inviting
this
us.
very important and worthwhile, and it sounds like long overdue process.
Right.
Yeah.
Ken, this is going to make it easier to be a planning board member, isn't it? Because now this flow of special permits might slow down a little bit. I know for a fact those people have been pretty busy.
Very
so maybe
busy
it'll
in that
make everything a little easier, a little clearer. Oh, this is wonderful
That's the
stuff.
goal.
Appreciate everything you've done. Ken, you too.
Thanks, Max.
Good to see you around the halls. Folks, that's it. We have had Ken Comia, our town planner, and Daphne Politis, who is a planner at large, planning a lot of different communities, talking to us about the process that has gone on for the last year, which is the updating of our zoning bylaws. Who knew? But these zoning bylaws, and when they're brand new and they hit the table and they're approved by the vote of the Southbridge Town Council, would become the rule for people that want to do business, that want to set up their tent downtown, not tent, but set up their shop downtown or whatever.
Tents aren't allowed in the zoning bylaw.
Tents aren't allowed?
Not in the downtown.
No? Well, okay. Maybe not a tent. Maybe they can use one of the existing buildings.
There you go.
Clean it up. That'd be special, too. But anyway, hopefully we'll see that. We'll have it, it'll be in a month or so, that you as a citizen will slowly begin to reap the benefits of it if you're the type of citizen that wants a little more business in town, and if you're the developer or business planner or so forth that wants a set of rules that are easier to follow perhaps and make it a little clearer to you before you get tied up with time and money into your project. Does that sound fair? Thanks for coming on, folks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone at Southbridge. Thanks for watching Southbridge Community Television, and we will see you here again soon. Thank you. Thanks. Went real well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was
Cool.
good.
Appreciate it. 27 minutes. That's not too
Hey.
bad. Somewhere between 10 and 30.
were right.